Hello, my name is Ben Buddy Slack, and I'm the founder of the Swan Song Project. The Swan Song Project is a charity that helps people face the end of their lives to write and record their own original songs. I've been doing a podcast with songwriters where I ask them to share with us one of their songs, tell us a little bit about how they wrote it, share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for new or aspiring songwriters, and also to share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. This episode features Banjo Jen, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, today I'm here with Banjo Jen. Thanks for joining me, Jen.
Hello, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Do you get called Banjo Jen all the time, or do you prefer to be called Jen?
Just call me Jen today. It came about actually from, it was a nickname like when I moved to Sheffield 5 years ago with a banjo on my back. There were so many Jens. I moved in with a Jen. I was lodging with a Jen. She had a friend called Jen. So it was a way to differentiate. Everyone just called me Banjo Jen and it stuck.
Nice, yeah, it works well. It's a good distinctive stage name. Good. So if anyone's seen these podcasts before, we do 3 different sections. So first, we're going to have one of my guest songs. We're going to talk a little bit about how they wrote that. Section 2, Jen's going to share with us a songwriting tip that might be useful for new songwriters. And then section 3, we're going to talk about a song that's meaningful to Jen in some way relating to bereavement. So section 1, I'm going to hand you over to Jen's going to introduce the song, and then we'll hear that. So what song did you choose for us, Jen?
All right, cheers. So this one is called Queen of the Chilkoot Trail. And I sent you a performance version of it just because I thought the laptop and banjo frequencies probably not the best idea. Guitars might cope, but banjo could be dodgy. So yeah, this is Queen of the Chilkoot Trail.
This next one is my little tribute to a female entrepreneur from the gold rush, the Klondike gold rush, called Belinda Mulrooney, who went up into the wilds of the Yukon with all the grizzly old miners and made her fortune up there. Really inspiring. This is my little tribute to her called Queen of the Chilkoot Trail. My name is Miss Mulrooney, you may take me as you find me. I came to make my fortune and I'll leave you all behind me. You can scoff, you can mock, you can say that I will fail, but I'll see you all in hell if you survive the Chilkoot Trail. Oh, the year is 1898, and this, sir, is my tale. I trekked up to these gold fields on that God-forsaken trail, where strong men they were broken and into the ice they fell. The Chilkoot Trail stole many souls and sent them straight to hell. But my name is Miss Mulrooney and I'm made of stronger stuff. Yes, I crossed the sea from Ireland over waters harsh and rough, and I joined this crazy gold rush, dragged a ton upon my back. Yes, I may be just a woman, sir, but balls I do not lack. Well, the Chilkoot Trail was just the start upon this hunt for gold, and it made the sane go crazy and it turned the young to old. But we pushed on up to Dawson, El Dorado of the north. That's where the gold lay waiting, or at least that's what they thought. But my name is Miss Mulrooney and I'm smarter than them all. Yes, I'll let them dig for gold and I'll watch the weak ones fall. I've seen it all before, sir, and I'll tell you what I found. I know where the money is and it isn't in the ground. No, the money is in the people and the things that they will need while they drive themselves insane and dig for gold to feed their greed. They'll need shelter, food, clothes, and here these things are hard to buy. So I'll sell them at 10 times the price and I'll fleece them high and dry. Yes, my name is Miss Mulrooney. You may think that I sound cruel, but it's dog-eat-dog up here, and sir, I am nobody's fool. And if a man had said this, well, I bet you wouldn't care. But a woman, well, how dare she? Well, so screw you, 'cause I dare. Gold, the lure of gold, rots the brain, and it eats the soul. And it's a curse runs through this land. It's been the death of many a man. And your luck can change this place with just one roll of the dice. And I should know I lost it all. Yes, sir, I paid the price. But that was not the end of me. No, that was just a fall. I built it all back up again. Now I'm richer than them all. Yes, my name is Miss Mulrooney. You may take me as you find me. I came to make my fortune and I'll leave you all behind me. Did you scoff? Did you mock? Did you say that I would fail? I'll see you all in hell. I'm the queen of the Chilkoot Trail.
Okay, great. So that was Queen of the Chilkoot
Trail.
Queen of the Chilkoot Trail.
It's in the Yukon.
Okay, great stuff. So yeah, great. What can you tell us about writing that one?
So that one is obviously it's a character-based song, and I quite like doing that with songwriting. So a lot of my songs are really personal, but I also like to put myself in another person's shoes and write as a character. And that one, she is a real life woman who I just find amazingly inspiring, because she, you know, in 1898 or whatever, she went up to the Yukon in those crazy conditions where, you know, all the grizzly old miners were, it was such a man's world, and she went up there and she sold, you know, food and built hotels and lost her fortune, made it again. Like, she was just this like amazing woman, so like ahead of her time kind of thing. And so yeah, it really, I've always been inspired by her story, and I just wanted to write a song about it. And you know, quite a few of my songs have that kind of slightly ballsy attitude, from a female point of view, and I think she's just a great role model for other girls to hear about, you know.
Yeah, it's great. I share that love of narrative, these kind of, you know, great character songs telling the big story. Did you so you're saying you've got a few of those kind of ones? Do you like the how did you come about the story? Was it like you was looking for stuff like that, or was it just a story you heard? And like
so I've always been a bit fascinated by the gold rush, the Yukon, the Klondike gold rush, and I was lucky enough to live in Canada a lot of years ago. I did a sort of gap year after I did my teacher training, and I lived in Vancouver, but for the last part I went travelling up into the Yukon by myself in March, when it's still winter and nobody visits. So I saw like the real Yukon, and it was amazing, and I met all these crazy characters. But I'd read up a lot about the history of it at the time, and it always sort of fascinated me. So I'd come across her in quite a few of the history books, and it was kind of hard to piece together a lot of the information, because, you know, there was sort of snippets everywhere, but I got enough to build this little picture of what she'd done, enough to have artistic license to make a song about it.
Yeah, that's part of the fun with those songs, isn't it? It becomes kind of part of the mythology of that character. And is there any other songs about it, you know, or is this have we heard anyone else do a song about her?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, she's probably a bit of an obscure character for people to know about, unless you're really into Klondike gold rush history, which is a little bit niche.
It's good to have that niche area, isn't it?
But I don't know. Yeah, maybe there is. You know.
Yeah.
Never know.
I was thinking of, you know, ones like Stagger Lee and John Henry, and those kind of songs that are, you know, the kind of character, those kind of stories that have been done in songs over the years, and like the narrative goes in different directions each time. And
yeah. Maybe over in Canada, there's probably more likely lots of tales of the gold rush, because the Yukon itself does actually have a really good folk scene, or it did when I went. There's quite a big arts scene over there. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that she lives on in a few different
people's
versions.
yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's a lot of fun writing story songs, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I love it.
Yeah.
I mean, I once saw a songwriter who said he didn't understand how anyone could write about someone else, because all he knew about was him. And I get that, you know, because there's that age-old advice, isn't there, about write about what you know, and it should be personal. But the fact that he couldn't comprehend writing about something else kind of struck me as a bit weird, because I was like, well, you know, try it, like put yourself in somebody else's shoes, because that's a really like good inspiration for a song, is to like see something from a different point of view. Yeah,
definitely. And I always think of it in terms of like, sometimes you're writing about someone else, but you're also writing about you.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what I've definitely done before. Like, I don't want to write a song that's from my perspective, so I put it as a character, but it's my experience. Just like, on a train or something, I'll put a train into it instead of something to make it sound distant. I'll put it in a different country. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Great stuff, Jen. So let's move to section 2, shall we? So this is where I ask my guests for songwriting tips that might be useful for new songwriters. So what tip would you share with us, Jen?
I was thinking about this. It's such an interesting question, isn't it? Because there's so many, and I'm sure you've had like loads if this is episode 20 something. And there's lots of practical tips. But I think I was thinking about it, and what I would say is, don't just think of a song as the lyrics and the melody, because that is what people get fixated on when they start writing songs. It's like they spend so long stressing about getting the verses and the chorus right, and the melody and the progression, and obviously that's important, that's like your bones of the song, but the melody and the lyrics are still only part of the song. And I think dynamics are really, really important. And so it's thinking about how you want that song to be delivered, because there's no point having a song that just sits there on paper. The idea is it's going to be performed at some point, hopefully. And so you need to think about the dynamics of how it's performed. And that might be something really simple, like, do you start the first verse really slow, just with like a strum of the chord, and you sing over the top really slow, but then you kick in with the second verse with a beat or a strum, and just that small thing can add a really dynamic element to it? Or do you want, you know, like that song of mine that we played, that's a really ballsy song because it's talking about a female who's like saying, you know, stuff you, that I'm going to do this. And so you need some attitude behind it. So I wanted it to be a very punchy, sort of hitty kind of song, and the way I sing it has that attitude. Whereas if I was singing about, you know, a love song where I'm heartbroken, I wouldn't be kind of singing in that way. It'd be softer, it'd be more gentle. So I think that's really important. And I think listening to a wide range of stuff can help with that, because even if you don't realize it, I think subconsciously you absorb things from different genres and different styles of work. So for example, I was thinking about it, and like the banjo is potentially quite a limiting instrument. One way to put it. And especially the way I play, because I play a traditional frailing style, which is a very specific rhythm. So in some ways it's really confining. But I like that challenge of writing songs within that and trying to get dynamics and variety in there, even within those confines. But when I think of what I also listen to, I grew up listening to grunge, you know, like I loved Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, Smashing Pumpkins. Now, my banjo stuff is obviously not anything like that. But I think that attitude sometimes, you know, because those sort of songs had that guts and that grit and that attitude. And I bring that in, whereas a lot of folk musicians don't do that so much. It's a bit more gentle, you know, and maybe that's had an influence. And I love disco, anything funky, soul-y with a big like beat behind it. I love listening to that. And again, that's not anything to do with banjo or folk or country, but I also use a lot of percussion in my songs, and they're very beat driven a lot of the time, I've realized, which again isn't such a folky trait. So I think subconsciously, if you listen to loads of stuff, it sinks in and it shapes your style without you realizing it. So that would be my tip, is to like listen to a variety of stuff, think about what you like about those things, like the different dynamics. Do you like the way that person you know, goes really soft and vulnerable, or do you like how they kind of like get in your face, or, you know, use some of those things that you like about other things?
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think it's when I was younger, it felt a lot more like a thing of, you know, like you were a certain kind of musician, so you only meant to listen to that kind of music.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it doesn't make any sense at all, does it? But at the time, it kind of felt like that was the thing. And then you're right, that's what makes music interesting, is when you're pulling different influences from different areas. So like you say, it's kind of a banjo style, but then you've got some kind of a grunge influence on it as well, and that's what makes an artist unique, I guess, is it's pulling from all these different areas, whatever has interested them. I was going to ask you, we're talking about the dynamics of the song and how you make that decision of how a song's going to go. Is it like you have the story, and then so you kind of use the Queen of the Slip
Chilcoot Trail.
Chilcoot Trail. I'll get it one day. Like you have the kind of the attitude of the narrative, and then that informs is that how it works with all the songs, or is it like you play them and you find where the dynamics work, or is there a particular method you use, or do they just settle in? Like,
I think they just settle in generally. I don't know, it's sort of, sometimes they change a bit depending on how it's progressing as the music's coming along. So I've certainly had some songs where I've thought it's going to be more one way, and then as it develops it morphs and it changes, but generally I have a rough idea of whether it's going to be a more sort of gentle flowing song or whether it's going to be quite a punchy ballsy one. But yeah, I suppose it's defined by a couple of things: the subject matter and the music that I put to it. And again, that's like different people work in different ways, don't they? Because it always fascinates me, people who say they have the music first, you know, they create this whole music scape and then they decide what lyrics, and that blows my mind, because like I've done that very occasionally. I've been noodling and something's come and you think, oh, I like this riff, or I like this progression, and you do start to think about what would work with it. So I have done it to some extent, but most times it's always the idea that comes to me first, the lyric, like a part of the lyrics or the idea, and then I pick the banjo up and I start to put the music at the same time. But it's very rare that like I create some kind of soundscape first and then think about lyrics. Yeah. Like it fascinates me that people like they work in such different ways, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff. Great stuff. So let's move into section 3 now. So this is where I ask I guess to share with us a song that's meaningful to them in some way relating to bereavement. So what I do for this section is I put a link to the song in the description of the video. So if you're watching this and you're not familiar with the song, I'll ask Jen to introduce it in a moment, and then you can pause us here, go listen to the original, and come back and we'll have a chat about it. So what song did you choose for us, Jen?
So I picked Everybody's Talking by Harry Nilsson, which I know you were chatting to another songwriter who picked that song, and I think it may be quite a popular choice actually for people dealing with grief and bereavement. Because it's a beautiful song, and you know, I think probably a lot of people are familiar with it, but just that idea of, you know, I'm going where the sun keeps shining through the pouring rain. It's like got this beautiful idea of someone kind of finding peace and maybe going on to somewhere better that we don't understand. I just think it's got that really nice, gentle sort of feeling about it that might soothe people, I think. So I think it probably is a song that helps people, but it had a very personal sort of connection for me. I don't like, there's times in your life where you meet these people, I don't know if you've experienced this, but you know, like you have a chance meeting with somebody and it changes your life somehow. It has like a profound effect on you. And I think if you're lucky, that happens a few times in your life, and whether that's in a romantic way because you meet the love of your life, whether it's a stranger that becomes a friend that you never thought you'd have, or I don't know, it could just be a work thing where you've met someone and a massive opportunity's opened up that you didn't think of. And you know, there's these like little chance encounters we have that really affect us. And I met a guy a few years ago, and that sort of happened. It was just out the blue. I met him at a folk festival, and we had this connection, and it was a strange thing, like nothing could happen. I was in a really nice long-term relationship at the time, and he was in a bit of a mess with his life and didn't know what he wanted. And so it was one of those really strange things where we just talked for 2 days, and it really changed something in me, because at the time I was probably a little bit lost and didn't really know what direction I needed to go. And at that point the music was only just coming into my life, and I'd kind of started songwriting a little bit, and I knew that I wanted to develop the music, but I didn't sing in front of anyone at that time. And you know, it was a really kind of like early stages of something changing. And anyway, so we went our separate ways, and something had clicked, and he moved to Australia. I eventually moved to Sheffield, started playing more banjo, started performing, and it was the sort of catalyst for me of things really going in a different direction. And I found out last year that he committed suicide in Australia. And it was a really weird one, because we'd kind of kept in contact a little bit, but not really very much. It was just this kind of one meeting that it changed things so much for me. And then it was gone, you know, and so then finding out that he was gone, like properly gone, was a really hard one to deal with, because usually when you lose somebody, you have mutual friends, or you have mutual family members. Do you know what I mean? You grieve sort of with other people. But I didn't know any of his friends. I didn't know anybody else connected with him particularly. So it was, I sort of knew his brother a little bit, but it was a really strange one to deal with, because I was sort of grieving someone who I didn't really know, and yet that had this massive impact on my life. And it was just really, really strange. But he'd posted Everybody's Talking the night before he passed away. Mm-hmm. And I think it was his little, he hardly ever posted on social media, but he posted that song that night. And I think it was his little note to say, I'm going where the sun keeps shining, like I'm going to be at peace, like this is where I need to go. So obviously now whenever I hear that song, it has a massive connection to him. And he also loved the theme from the film, you know, because it's from Midnight Cowboy, and he loved the John Barry theme tune. So last year, to help me sort of deal with the loss, I wrote him a song, and I used Everybody's Talking as the basis. And it was something I'd never really done before, like take another song to morph into an original song, if that makes sense. So it wasn't like a cover, it was like taking the idea and the lyrics from that song and making it into something different. So I kind of took a bit of the John Barry theme tune, and then I took the lyrics from that song, and I made a song called Goodnight Cowboy for him. And I sing it at gigs and sort of explain a little bit about the story. And in January, I played it at a really beautiful gig in Sheffield. It was like a little songwriters night that Lynn Robertson had organised, a promoter in Sheffield. And it was one of those where you talk about your songs a lot and then sing them. So I'd sort of told the story and been quite vulnerable and open about everything. And a lady came up at the end and sort of, we were both crying, you know, like when you're having the conversation, she was sort of saying, it just affected me so much hearing you sing that. Like it made me think about people I'd had a special connection with, and then gone our separate ways, or they passed on or whatever. And we were sort of having this real moment, these two strangers, where this song had kind of brought us together, and it was really special. And I went home that night quite emotional. But then the next day, I got an email from her, and she must have found my contact online, and she said, I really hope you don't mind me messaging you today, but you'll never believe this. She said, this morning, I always set my radio alarm clock on a Saturday. I think she had like a exercise class or art class or something. And she said the song that woke her up that morning was Everybody's Talking. After we'd had like this like connection the night before. And I'm not a very spiritual person at all, you know, I'm an atheist, and I'm not overly spiritual, but just little signs like that, I love them. Do you know what I mean? It just makes you feel like there's these weird little connections in the world. And so it's just really special.
That's a lovely story, Jen.
Do, you know, like songs can connect people so much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a really lovely story, Jen. Thanks for sharing it with us. Is the Midnight Cowboy song available somewhere where people can listen to it?
It's not the only place. There is a little like a phone recording of it from a Greystones gig, and that's on my Facebook page. So yeah, there is a bit of a bad quality sort of phone recording. It's not that bad to say it's a phone recording. It's not something I would put out, you know, as any kind of finished thing. Hopefully I will record it at some point properly. But yeah, on my Facebook page there is a little clip of it at the Greystones. Yeah.
Stuff, so we can check it out. Yeah, I think it's really powerful. Like obviously the story, people not realizing how much of an effect they have on other people. Something I've thought about a lot before, and something comes up about with Swan Song. And those, like say, those really small interactions are like, it might just be a chance meeting with someone, and it has such a big impact on someone's life, and then the other person might not realize how positive an impact, particularly with cases of suicide and things like that, where people, can underestimate such a great impact they can have on other people's lives.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I'm really pleased that you've honoured it in a song, and that's helping other people as well deal with similar situations.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Well, thanks a lot for joining me, Jen. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been really good.
Yeah, it's really good fun. And people can follow you on all the social medias and things. I'll tag your page in this.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks everyone for watching. I'll be back with another episode soon.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, Jen.